Welcome to the Verdin Verdict Sports Show. Welcome in. Welcome into the stream. Welcome to the Verdin Verdict. I'm your host, Jacob Verdin. We're going to get into our live stream here. Let everybody jump in. I know we've been going live on Monday, on Wednesday, on Friday. We kind of been going live around 11 a.m. to 12 p.m., but we're going to stick around that lunchtime spot. I feel like it's the easiest. Everybody gets a little break, able to come in, able to talk some LSU football, LSU baseball, LSU recruiting in general. We got a couple of things to ad- address before we get into our stream. First things first, we got 7-on-7 coverage coming to you this Monday. We're going to be with G Sports again. We're doing our weekly segment on Mondays on the Verdin Verdict channel with G Sports. We're going to be talking about all things LSU recruiting. And I'm going to call him Mr. Nostradamus. He knows a thing or two about a thing or two. When you walk around the block a couple of times, you start to understand the lay of the land. So this is the perfect guy to come onto the show and talk about LSU recruiting. So stay tuned for the Monday stream. Once again, that's going to be at around lunchtime. We'll say 11:30ish. So hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and hit the like button as we get this stream underway. But without further ado, let's get right into this LSU baseball regional. I know everybody's excited. We got playoff baseball. Who doesn't like some playoff baseball? I mean, I can get behind it. Then, especially when it's LSU, you got a pretty prestigious program here. 37th NCAA regional berth, and they're going to face Wofford on Friday at 5 p.m. Keep in mind, LSU and Wofford have never played before. Y'all are probably thinking, man, what? Who's Wofford? And where are they? What do they even do? Well, let me tell you something about them because I think that they are going to catch a couple of people by surprise on Friday. If you look at the statistics in NCAA baseball in D1, Wofford is second in runs per game at 10 runs a game on average. They are third in batting average at 340. I want to tell everybody to pump the brakes. Now, I'm not saying LSU's going to lose. No. I think LSU wins this game. However, what I am saying is there will be a ton of offense. There will be a lot of things to not necessarily worry about, but there's going to be some things that you're going to have to scratch your head and watch out for. I think that game might be, a little close for comfort for some people, especially some people that don't know Wofford, especially the people that are, thinking LSU is going to breeze on through the Chapel Hill side of things and play UNC without a shadow of a doubt. Now, if LSU wins, they do play at the 4 p.m. slot the very next day on Saturday. However, if they lose, they get a bit of an early start. They're going to play at 11 a.m. So I feel like winning this game on Friday will do wonders for LSU's situation just because you get to sit back and rest and watch the people in front of you play on Saturday and you get to kind of just ease into your weekend a little bit. But like I said, Wofford, very offensive team, very, very good at scoring the baseball, very good at, just getting the ball in play in general. When you're batting 340 as a team collectively, that smells trouble. When you're scoring 10 runs a game, it also smells trouble. I think that, Wofford could come in to this regional with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, like, oh man, y'all are writing us off already. I know we're playing LSU, the defending national champions, but come on. We're ranked number 2 in runs, number 3 in batting average. I think that those two stats, they startled me a little bit. They made me think, okay, this is not your average walk in the park. This is not a first round, just, bye, so to speak. You can't just breeze through these guys. You're going to have to bring your A game, and that's when the decision is going to have to be made by Jay Johnson, and I think Jay Johnson makes great decisions. I mean, if you look at the pitching count or the pitching limit, I should say, that he put on the pitchers into the SEC tournament, it laid them right into the situation that they're in as of now. You're going into regional weekend. You got Gage Jump, Nate Alkerson, Luke Holman. You pretty much got the whole full staff rested. Now, what you don't have is Christian Little. He's probably going to have to recover. But putting Nate in a pitch count like that, saving Gage, it's going to allow the depth. You know what I'm saying? It's going to allow them to be able to not tip their hand. It's going to allow them to be able to conceal a couple of things close to the vest in terms of pitching announcements or just whole overall strategy. They might be able to save a Gage Jump for a game 2 on Saturday. They might be able to potentially throw out Nate on Friday or throw out Luke Holman on Friday and save your ace. I mean, I think Gage is the guy that, you're going to lean on. He's going to be this year's version of a toned down Paul Skeens. I can't say he's going to be Paul Skeens. I mean, Paul Skeens is out here throwing straight gas in the MLB. It's been pretty fun to watch. But yeah, LSU Baseball Regional, I think that they're in a pretty good spot. I know everybody's been worried about the trajectory of LSU in general. It's been a pretty rough go for them recently, especially in SEC play. And then they wind up, turning the switch on, and when it matters most, being able to perform and ultimately almost win the entire conference. I mean, if you would have told me that they would be in contention in the game to try to take it all against the Tennessee, who's the number one seed, who's potentially just overall the best team in the SEC. I mean, yeah, they won the championship, but sometimes, some things happen. I'm not going to say that the winner is always the clear winner. In this instance, I think Tennessee deserved it. They had a phenomenal game. They were playing LSU through and through. It's going to be interesting to see what they do in the NCAA tournament. But LSU, I think, has a pretty good situation on them. Now, is Wofford going to be a tougher test? Of course. When your bats are that hot, when you can get players to touch home plate that often, I think that you're in a situation where LSU could see a lot of offense. LSU's going to have to bring their A game. LSU's going to have to really lock in and defend that trophy. Because when you got the target on your back as the champ, you're getting everybody's best shot. Everybody that comes in to play LSU, this is their Super Bowl. This is their biggest moment of the season. This is when the eyes are all on them. This is when, the lights are the brightest. This is when the pressure really hits. And, as we say here on the Verdin Verdict, pressure makes diamonds, and you put diamonds on championship rings. So it's a perfect storm, if you ask me. I think that the LSU baseball team could potentially, turn some heads here. Will they make a big push run? Only time will tell, but we'll be here to cover it. So stick around. Switching gears, LSU football recruiting update. Oh, everybody rubbing their hands, getting excited. I know this is the point of the stream where we start to see all your opinions. We start to see how you feel about things. So go ahead and leave your comments and leave your predictions, if you will, in the chat. But let's start things off with the man in question, Decorian Moore. This man is going to pretty much make a team's summer this year. The number one wide receiver in the 2025 class out of Texas, going to Duncanville. And I really think this kid's a generational talent. I think Decorian Moore is a phenomenal kid, phenomenal athlete. He's got a lot of things that he possesses that could make uh, whatever team, whether it be an LSU, a Texas, an Oregon, an Ohio State, they can make a big jump just by simply signing a name like this. Why? Is Decorian Moore that talented where one singular recruit getting added to the mix is going to just change everything overnight? Well, no, but what's going to happen is a domino effect. You're going to see everyone join in tandem. You kind of heard him throughout this last weekend doing interviews and kind of just talking about the different players recruiting him, whether it be a Caden Durham at LSU currently or, Bryce Underwood, who's committed and set to be at LSU and looks pretty locked in, if you ask me. Then, he's getting Colin Simmons at Texas kind of talking to him. He's got an Ohio State wide receiver, corner kind of talking to him. He's getting pulled in every direction. Decorian Moore is the guy, and I think that the rapport you see him developing with the teammates at the universities he's not even playing at yet is very indicative of the type of player you're going to get. If you got people chomping at the bit just to have a conversation with Decorian Moore, just to try to even influence him in the slightest, I think that puts you as a college football fan on red alert. Like, oh my God, this is a player we have to make sure that we sign. This is a player that we have to make sure we do not miss. We can't sell this. We cannot. But I think it might be a little more confusing of a decision than what we are expecting. As of right now, on this weekend, Decorian Moore will be traveling to Columbus, Ohio to visit Ohio State officially. Now, as an official visit, some things change. He's been in these schools before. He's been at LSU, of course. He's been at Texas. He's been at Oregon, and he's been at Ohio State. He's been there. He's done that. He's seen some things. This time, you're really trying to wow him, especially because Decorian Moore announced that he's going to make his decision toward the end of July, maybe around the beginning of August. That clock's ticking. You only got about a month left. You got to make your best pitch right now. This visit that he's going on, you've got to understand this is probably your last chance to get him to bite the hook. This is your last chance to throw a cast out there and hope that you reel in the big fish. I think Decorian Moore can be the biggest fish of this entire recruiting class. And I mean, especially for LSU, you already got Bryce Underwood. You already got Harlem Berry. You already got the number one inside offensive tackle. You got pieces. This is one of the last pieces to the puzzle. Is it make or break? No. But this would be one of the strongest puzzles I've seen in college football recruiting in some time. I mean, the number one running back, wide receiver, quarterback, inside offensive tackle. That is skill position heaven. Plus, the offensive line will continue to develop. I'm going to throw the offensive line in as a skill position. They're honorable mention skill guys. I know that, they're not the fastest. They might not necessarily be the strongest, but hell, they're probably the hardest working guys on the field. So let me throw that out there for them. But Decorium Moore did mention in an interview. I want to kind of just talk about what I've heard from him so far throughout, whether it be an interview with On3 or at the NIL Summit this past week. Either way, he did mention that his mom, her world would be made if he went and stayed at Texas, stayed in the university system or right around Austin. He said they have family around Austin. They've been in and out. But I don't think that it's a lock like everybody's saying. I don't think he's locked to go to Texas. Would I be surprised if he didn't go? Yeah, maybe. That's probably the place that's favored the most. I got an underdog that a lot of people would not consider. Now, Decoria Moore is visiting Ohio State this weekend. The next weekend, he will be returning to Baton Rouge, and he's going to get his last shot with LSU. What he said about the visit to LSU and what he said that he wants to see is what LSU can do for him off the field, what LSU can do for him outside of football. What can they do for him on a personal level? And boy, oh boy, Decoria Moore, got some news for you. This might be the hot spot for off the field development, the hot spot for getting your personal brand growing and booming and in front of the eyes of millions. We've seen it time and time again. I mean, do I have to name all the names, whether it be a Jaden Daniels, some elite neighbors? You could throw Joe Burrow in there, but how about Angel Reese? How about Flau'jae Johnson? You got players in all kinds of sports. Olivia Dunn, all kind of sports, all kind of different walks of life, making it happen, repping the three letters. I think that question is more oriented towards NIL, more oriented towards what are you going to offer me? What are you going to be able to do? And look, I'm not going to speak for Decoria Moore. This is just my analysis of it. However, it just seems like a no-brainer that when you're pairing it comparatively to Texas and Ohio State and Oregon, no shots at them. It's just LSU and their brand is a little bit bigger, if you ask me. It's a little bit more, not gonna say modern, but it's just like it's ever changing. They seem to be the standard. They seem to be the people that are doing things first. I don't know if they're the best brand, but they're one of the biggest, and I feel like that's pretty hard to deny. So, if you're Decoria Moore and you're making it about a well-rounded decision. You're making it about, I need to go to a spot that's going to put me in prime position. You're keeping the main thing, and you want to develop. I understand. I agree. And I think that the very, very, very clear-cut choice would be to come to LSU. He also mentioned he wants to play with a good quarterback. Well, boy, oh boy, whether it be Bryce Underwood, I mean, we still have Garrett Nussmeier. Colin Hurley is zipping passes all over the place. You got Ricky Collins. LSU is turning into a quarterback, like, it's quarterback heaven. You got any kind of quarterback you want. Want a mobile quarterback? Got one. You want a smaller quarterback that can be able to get in and out and still sling one down the field? Got one. You want a quarterback like Nussmeier who can sit in the pocket and dime people up and throw rockets down the field? You got one. Then you got Bryce Underwood coming in who could be, quite frankly, the best quarterback we've seen in a while. Just judging off of what you've seen from his film. This is high school film. This is some stuff from 707s. We don't want to overreact yet. But all I'm saying is, if the decision is really based off of playing with a good quarterback, playing at a university that's going to develop you, oh man, I don't know. I don't know where the confusion is. I don't understand. Now, where I do get, understanding and where I do see where he's coming from is the fact that there is going to be a bigger NIL opportunity at other schools. That's the elephant in the room, is that a Texas, Oregon, Ohio State, all these teams can allocate funds toward Decoria Moore that he may not see at LSU. However, do you want the funds right now or do you want the funds later? I mean, look at what Malik Neighbors signed in terms of a contract. Look at what Jaden Daniels signed in terms of a contract. Jaden Daniels is getting a $25 million signing bonus. Malik Neighbors' whole contract is roughly $30 million, gets like a $15 million signing bonus. I mean, hey, a couple million to at the beginning of your career to like really boost you, it's nothing to sneeze at. I understand. But let's think long term. Let's think long run. If you're looking at wide receiver development and wide receiver hotspots and just overall success in terms of who you're going to be around and the type of staff you're going to be in, I feel like all signs point towards staying in the commitment. Now, it's unlikely, in my opinion, because why decommit if you're just going to come back? It does confuse me that he's going to go on another official visit here because I only heard, as of a few weeks ago that he was coming Ohio State, Texas, Oregon. I didn't know that he was going to squeeze in LSU. makes me a little comfortable, makes me think that, okay, he might not have written them off already. However, he's made mention of how, it was kind of tough to tell Bryce Underwood. Obviously, it's tough to tell the coaching staff as well, but it's like, man, I'm getting a little worried about the decision. It seems kind of final, if you ask me. It seems like he may be 100% set on not coming to LSU. If you're going through and you're crossing your T's, dotting your I's, making sure you inform everybody, having the tough conversations, saying it was one of the conversations, that you really weren't looking forward to having, you already got that out the way. If you thought that there was an inkling of you staying, I feel like that those conversations wouldn't have been held. And losing to Decoria Moore, it won't be the end all be all. You still got guys like Khalid Lockett, Caleb Cunningham in terms of wide receiver recruits for 2025 that LSU can look toward. But the number one recruit doesn't hurt. The number one wide receiver in the country doesn't hurt, especially at wide receiver U. Yeah, I said it. Yeah, I said it. Wide receiver U. What you gonna say? But I'm pretty interested to see about what LSU does with this recruiting class. I think that this could be the turn of the recruiting in Baton Rouge. Have they always been really good at keeping Louisiana talent in? Of course. You're a state university to boot. You're going to keep the boot guys home. But they can start pulling people from out of state. You get a Texas recruit. You get a DJ Pickett from Florida. Shout out, 6'4" corner. Man, I can't wait for Corey Raymond to be able to talk to him, get his hands on him, and develop him. He's DJ's coming in for a visit as well here, so we're going to be updating you. This recruiting cycle is picking up at LSU. Not only is Decoria Moore coming to his final official visit before he commits here shortly in about a month, but you get DJ Pickett. You get a couple of 7-on-7s. You get to see what the future really looks like. You get to really see how things are shaping up and if LSU is going to be able to keep paddling and pushing down and being the best team in the SEC potentially. Potentially. I think LSU, there's not really many options in terms of people beating LSU in the SEC. I feel like I only got about 2 or 3 teams I could really realistically see take it. Man, this pains me to say. I'll throw number 1 out there, Georgia. I'll give Georgia their credit where credit is due. They are going to be one of the tougher teams, and will they win it all? No. Straight up, no. They will not. But they'll be a tough little test. If you play in the SEC title game, you're not going to exactly be looking forward to it comparatively to Alabama or a Texas or what have you. But those 2 teams, they're next on my list. I think that Alabama and Texas are going to be pretty good. Texas last year with Sarkisian had a pretty solid run. Quinn Ewers had his moments at times. He had his injury here and there. But I think that they're locked and loaded. And I think that Texas, let's look at what they're doing in the Decoria Moore situation. They're becoming a prominent brand. They're getting there. Are they, at an LSU level yet? No, but it'll be close. And it might even only take a year. It'll be interesting, too, to see what happens when Quinn Ewers leaves, with how the transition goes with Arch Manning and just how that helps the recruiting efforts as well. Because you got to think Decoria Moore is thinking that in the back of his mind. Oh, man, Arch Manning's next up. That's a good quarterback. And it's like he's talking about that's one of the main focuses. And another one of the main focuses, I'm sure, is making his mom happy. If his mom wants him to stay in Texas and it would make her world, I'd be on P's and Q's about that one. I think LSU could be considered a top dog in the SEC. They could somehow make some noise, and I think an 11-win season is not out of the realm of possibility, but it's going to take a lot of things to go perfect, and perfection's kind of hard to come by in sports, and especially college football in general, if we're looking at the lay of the land and the way things have been playing out here. But I wouldn't be, surprised to see them in the college football playoff making a run at the conference title. And the good thing about the 12-man playoff seeding and format is that LSU doesn't have to hoist a SEC championship trophy to make an effort in the SEC or just get in the college football playoff at all. I don't think that they're going to have to be champions or written off. I don't think it's going to be one of those things where it's like, the 4-man where you'll see 3 conference champions and 1 runner-up or, potentially 4 conference champions. If you don't win your conference, you still breathe. Are you breathing at the bottom and playing in a little tougher situations and matchups as a lower seed? Yeah, but you can make it work. You're in, and that's better than not being in. So I think that this 12-man playoff will be a little interesting. And LSU is probably one of your top dogs, I'll admit. Overrated teams, though. Who are the people that I'm looking at in terms of, man, I don't think they can really push the pace. Man, I don't think they're really where they're at. If there's a heat check, I'm going to kind of think that these guys are cooling off, even though one of them has potentially just started. I'm going to start with that one too. Ole Miss. I'm going to have to put a heat check here on Ole Miss because we're talking about transfer portal this, recruit that, Lane Kiffin this, Jackson Dart that. I need to see it to believe it. I need to see these guys in a full competitive environment. The spring ball footage isn't doing enough for me. The spring game footage isn't doing enough for me. I want to keep tabs on Ole Miss a little closer because they could surprise me, and I could be eating a word sandwich here in a couple of months. But I also could be sitting here like, oh, well, I told you so. I feel like the Rebels were kind of destined for an A&M like demolition, I guess is what I'm going to call it. They're just decomposing on the inside. It's like everyone gets so ready. Everyone gets so excited to give them the preseason awards that you don't even wait to see how they're going to do in the season. This team could come out and be all over the place. This team could be confused. This team could be not working together. This team could be, still similar to what they were last year. Were they bad last year? No, but they lost to LSU if you have another 5 minutes of defensive effort. If you put in this year's defense, they beat Ole Miss by 2 possessions. But we're not ready for that conversation. That's just my thought process. Is Ole Miss good? Yeah, a lot of SEC teams are good. They're good enough to be at the top of college football and be talking about a national championship? Not anytime soon. Maybe not even in 2 years. I think they got a long way to go. If Ole Miss jumps LSU, leapfrogs LSU because of a transfer portal class, I'd be surprised. Because the transfer portal's so touch and go. Now, I mean, y'all know nowadays you get a transfer in, you could potentially not have anything close to what you thought you were getting. He's in a different scheme, different environment around different people. You move him in, he might not even translate the same. He could change the trajectory of your franchise, though, or of your school. I mean, there's been transfers in the past, like, of course, LSU's Joe Burrow or their, Jaden Daniels, that have completely been elite and phenomenal. But if you look at both of those situations, Burrow and Daniels, took time. Got to be patient. I don't think the transfer portal is overnight success. I don't think the transfer portal is anything, like free agency either, where, yeah, I feel like in NFL free agency, at least for the most part, you know what you're getting. At least for the most part, when you get a guy with a huge contract, unless you're the Saints, you pretty much get what you get. You pretty much get the worth of what you pay. There are some times, unfortunately, where you do overpay somebody and you do find out a little too late that it ain't worth it. But that same dynamic is going on in college football in the transfer portal. Sometimes these kids come in and they get ranked this or, they get ranked that and they invest into them. And now you're in a situation where you know, you thought you were in one place and now you're in another. And I'm not saying Ole Miss is going to be 100% screwed like a Texas A&M. All I'm saying is if they have their head in the sky, eyes in the clouds, and they're not really staying present in the moment, I wouldn't be surprised to see them be an overrated SEC team with 2 to 3 losses. 3 losses is an Achilles heel at this point. 3 losses will ruin your season, your chances, or just any hope of a college football playoff in general. In the past, 2 losses did that. We haven't seen a 2-loss team even compete for a national championship in a variety of years. Now you'll actually start seeing people get that second chance, but a third chance is completely unlikely. And I could see the Rebels being on that brink of having a 3-loss team. Now, that does not mean that they are a bad team by any stretch of the imagination. That is not what I'm trying to say. What it does mean is and I might pump the brakes a little bit on transfer portals and just high rank recruits in general. I'm not going to think that that's going to automatically guarantee you success. We've seen it time and time again. Sometimes it doesn't pan out, sometimes it doesn't work. Ads are about to run. We'll be back after this. Just in case some of you are still with us here with the YouTube Premium, I'm going to kind of talk about how many teams I see entering the college football playoff from the SEC. The SEC is the power conference. They're the number one conference. They are the people that, run the show for the most part. If you're not Ohio State in the Big Ten or you're not, a Florida State or a Clemson in the ACC, it's pretty much been SEC champs through and through the last 10, 15 years. And that has popped the question into my head. How many SEC teams are going to represent the conference in the college football playoff? When you add it to 12 teams, more often than not, you see 2 to 3 SEC teams in the top 10 as it is. But now when you have to vote on who's the best of the best, it's hard for me to think that they're not going to put players or teams from the best conference in college football. It kind of just seems one and the same. And I'm going to go out and say, as of right now, May 29th, my guess would be we'd see 4 teams in the college football playoff. That's a third of the bracket being in the Southeastern Conference, but it wouldn't surprise me. I do think LSU is going to go on and get 10 wins. If that's, if I'm optimistic about LSU here, I gotta kind of say something I don't want to say and expect Georgia to go. I'm sure Alabama will make a crack at it. I'm pretty sure they're going to surprise some people with how well Jalen Milroe is going to transition and develop and just blossom under the tutelage of Kalen DeBoer. And then Texas is also a team that you have to respect. Texas last year was on the brink of getting in and, making some noise. And I think this year, them going to the SEC, it's going to do 2 things. One, yeah, it'll put more pressure on them. They're going to have a tougher schedule. They're going to play tougher teams, and you're really going to get to know what they're made of. 2, and I'm big on this one, 2, playing those type of teams and those type of environments really shows you who you are, who you got, and what you're capable of. With that being said, if you have a year where you lose two times, you get a complete understanding, a complete breakdown of your trajectory, of what your squad is, of what you possess, of what you need to fix, of what kind of staff members you might need to fire or hire, what type of players you need to seek out in the off season. It's going to pay dividends. I always talk about the championship rub. Sometimes you got to walk in and just get your butt kicked to be able to understand what that feels like and what being in that moment is like. Sometimes you just got to go be forged by the fire. And I think Texas this year, with a 3-loss season, similar to Ole Miss, it's not the end of the world. A lot of Texas fans are thinking they are college football playoff or bust. But, the first year of the SEC might be a little bit of accumulation of, fatigue, exhaustion. They could have some injuries. They could have some things that just, don't add up to SEC level of play. There's a high standard here. You get it a gauntlet. We broke down LSU's 2024 schedule last week, and we noted that through 5 weeks, LSU's going to have 4 of their 5 toughest games. Through a month of football, LSU's going to play their toughest opponents, all in a month stretch. You might have a bye week mixed in, but what I'm getting at is you don't get a break. You don't get to go play no sloppy team that's going to give you an easy win, not in the SEC. You're going to get a little bit of a brutal awakening here, but I think if anybody, if you're comparing it to Oklahoma's situation, if anybody's going to be added to the SEC and succeed, it's Texas. Oklahoma's not going to be able to hit the ground running. They're also going to be in a situation where they're quite awoken by what they have gotten themselves into. The SEC ain't nothing to play around with. Brian Kelly's been trying to tell y'all. But new dogs to watch, yeah, I'll say Texas. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. I'll stick with another Texas team. Somebody I would pay attention to and watch is A&M. Mike Elko, I'm really interested to see what he does with this situation. I mean, we've been harping on the transfer portal and why it might not always work out. I could say the same thing for high school recruiting. A&M brought in the #1 recruiting class, and, Jimbo Fisher kind of had his moments, and now he's not in College Station anymore, and they bring in a defensive-minded coach in Mike Elko, and people are excited. The first hire that you were seeing rumored to be made by the Aggies, some people were scratching their heads. Some people were not thrilled. With this one, with Mike Elko, I was like, well, I feel like that's a little bit of a better situation. That might be the one that could push them over the hump they've been waiting to get over. A&M has had some good games. They've beaten Alabama in recent years, and they've beaten LSU also. But I think that they're not really as far away from a 9 to 10 win season as many people would like to think. And Connor Wigman, he's going to blow people's minds. A&M's quarterback Connor Wigman is a little bit forgotten about. He's had a handful of games last year. He broke his foot. He got hurt in September. That's an early point of the year. He didn't even get through 4 games. They didn't even really start SEC play. I think that next year when you see him actually get thrown out there and actually be able to consistently put something together and hopefully not be, marked by injury, I think that people are going to start to remember his name. I think that people are going to start to be like, okay, A&M might be able to do something. Are they going to be entering a college football playoff? I don't know. I'm not going to go out on that limb. I'm not going to go as far as to say that. But I will say they're going to be a little interesting to watch. I think that if there's a couple of teams I'd keep close tabs on as an SEC football fan, it would be both Texas teams, whether it be the Longhorns or the Aggies. They're both going to kind of shape some things up. Texas is a big state, and when you add NIL and recruiting and just all of these all of these little nuances to this game, you got to give them credit. Schools in Texas have huge alumni networks. They are going to be able to scrap some money together. I mean, we all remember what happened with Jimbo Fisher in the buyout and how they were able to go get an elite coach right after a year of just cashing checks for a recruiting system. And shout out to A&M. I hope it works. But I think sometimes it's not as always as easy as it seems. Sometimes you're going to actually have to get a class in, get kids in, develop them for years, and just see what they shape out to be. I'd hate to end a stream right now where we got all y'all in here, but we hitting that 30-minute mark. We got some things planned here today. I'm not going to exactly say what it is, but I'll give you a little hint. We got another player coming in for a Madden interview. We'll be having that one come out in a couple of days. We're going to start turning up the fire here. I've been telling y'all, Verdin Verdict Takeover. I ain't playing. Y'all going to have to find out. We're going to have another stream Friday around lunch. I'm going to put that out there as well so y'all can go in, like the stream, get the notifications ready for Friday at lunch. We'll be talking a little bit about college football 25. We're going to dive into what I've heard in the recruiting world again. I'm going to keep trying. I'm going to keep figuring some things out. We'll keep the content coming. Make sure to hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell before you hop out of here. Hit the like button. Thank you for joining. Monday, Wednesday, Friday streams every week. I promise. Thanks for tuning into this one. Y'all have a good day.